Paul, every dad has that story they love to tell about being a dad. What is your favorite dad story?
Yeah, so I have so many. One from actually yesterday. I was at my son's school. He was presenting. Him and one of his friends. He's at fifth grade now, so he's like top of the elementary school, starting to show some of those leadership skills. And I was just so proud of him. They started a kindness club about 2 weeks left in last school year. Only got to do it for like the last 2 weeks, so the principal asked them to speak to the whole elementary school starting this year, and he was spouting off like 5 different life lessons that I've been teaching him his entire life. So he's talking about, if you're just being a jerk or if you're bullying, or he's talking about how important it is to have tone, and he had great eye contact. He had great presence about him, and just so proud that he's trying to make the world around him a better place. And that's such a rewarding thing as a dad. Something I care about is we want these kids to, I'm imagining myself 20 and 30 years from now. We need these kids to be great people. And I just love that. Hopefully all the work that I'm putting in will pay off. And so far it has.
That's awesome. That's going to be a very proud moment as a dad, man. I can see you're just radiating as you talk about it. That's awesome to see those. You try and do things as dad, right? You try and teach good lessons, but when you actually get to see them come out, you're like, yes, I did something right.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the Dad Hat Shenanigans podcast, the unfiltered truth about being a dad. Real dads, real stories, unfiltered, candid conversations on fatherhood. I'm your host, Brent Dallin, and today my guest is Paul Compeau. Paul, welcome to the Dad Hat Shenanigans podcast.
Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk to you and the listeners.
Oh, Paul, we're off to a great start this morning. I loved your story, and we'll see if I can actually do my job today, because right now the magic 8 ball says not likely, but it's going to be a great conversation. That's one of the reasons I love doing this show is dads are just so much fun. I get to relax and just enjoy talking to other men about my favorite subject. I have 2 daughters, and I love everything about being a dad. So this is a fun show for me to do. And I am really excited because you are wearing a great dad hat. And I really want to know what this dad hat is about. For all of you listening, I tell you guys, this is, of course, a podcast, but you got to check out the videos sometimes because some of the hats that come on this show are amazing. And Paul is wearing this beautiful princess-y pinkish party hat from one. So Paul, tell us about this.
Yeah, so when you said you have to wear a hat, I was like, okay, I don't normally wear hats. So what am I? I have a collection of ball caps at home, but none of them really represent like fatherhood. So I'm scurrying around in my kids' stuff and everything else, trying to find what really, shows part of fatherhood in a hat, right? Which kind of befuddled me for a few minutes, but I found this one, and what I thought about was just celebrating the great things that your kids are doing, right? And always being positive. And I think I heard it on the either on a video or a video podcast recently of as often as you can catch your kids doing good things and pointing it out. And it's not just your kids, it's the people you work with, it's your employees, it's your boss, it's everybody around you. Catch them doing something good and say something about it, right? So celebrating everything that is good about them, celebrating everything that, we think about it most on their birthdays or special occasions like that. But doing that on a constant basis is something that I'm not naturally good at. When I do personality assessments and things like that, I am very good at finding a problem with the system and trying to help fix it. I'm not very good at being like, oh, these are the best parts of it, let's celebrate that, right? So it's something I've had to work on, but it's something I love to be able to do is just encourage them, all the good things they're doing, and that's going to help them keep doing those good things.
I love it. Celebrating every moment with them is, I think, is one of those opportunities as a dad. It actually, because a lot of men are not, we're not good at that. I don't celebrate small wins. I teach people to celebrate small wins, and I try to remember to spell like my kids' small wins all over that. Mine, yeah, whatever,
Right.
My toxic trait is, I get through something, I'm just on to the next thing. I don't enjoy it. I'm like, yay. No, I don't care. Just on to the next task.
Yeah.
So it's something I talk about for men because I know this is a struggle for us. I think our kids help us learn that. I think that's one of the gifts of being a dad is your children really help you because you want to celebrate everything they do. Uh,
Yeah.
there's so much magic. Paul, how many kids do you have?
Two kids. So my oldest is 11. He's absolutely amazing. And then I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she's full of love and full of grace, and a little bit of an emotional teenager at some points, but absolutely shows love in some amazing ways that the rest of the family doesn't actually do as well. So it's just amazing to see her blossom.
So, Paul, tell us a little bit about you. Who are you? What do you do? Let's get some context before we jump into the conversation today.
Yeah, so dad first and foremost. That's my primary role. Heard somebody say all your kids are homeschooled, whether you choose to or not. So I take that to heart. It's my responsibility to make sure they're developing, not just academically, but as socially, their abilities and everything like that. So love that job. That's probably my primary. But I run a few businesses. My main one is Bridgewise College Planning, where we help students um, to develop their path in life. So we have certified counselors that are meeting with the kids to make sure if college is the right opportunity, that they're selecting the right majors, selecting the right career path, selecting the right schools, and then helping them get into those schools as well. And then on the flip side of that business, we're also working with the parents with financial planning of how they're actually going to pay that bill and maybe how they can pay less and get more in financial aid.
Okay. So this is a very valuable service. I know so many people who are just drowning in college debt because it wasn't a thought until so much later in life. You know, your kid starts getting to that sophomore, junior, and comes home from the counselor with like these college pamphlets. They're like, oh, they told us to start looking at. It's like, wait, college, huh? Huh? Oh yeah, that's a thing, huh? So that sounds like a great thing to help people with because it can be so expensive. So,
Yeah, and that is our specialty is late stage college planning. So we're normally working with people, through middle school and high school is our specialty. So everyone knows it, and you have kids, you know this. You should have started saving when you first found out you were pregnant, right? But it's normal to not do that, or maybe not do it as much as you should have, right? So heard somebody say, open an account, you should be putting $800 a month each into it, but you didn't have the money back then, right? You're younger, you're not making as much money, you're trying to juggle all the extra expenses of kids and everything like that. And you have the baby and you have the toddler and then you have the preschooler and now they're in school and they're awesome kids and you want to take trips with them. And maybe you have a couple kids, so you need a bigger car and you need a bigger house and all the other things that are great things that you're providing for your family. Those are all more urgent than saving for college 10 or 15 years in the future, right? And that's kind of how we act naturally as humans. So for all your listeners that have a middle school or a high school student and they don't have 100,000 per kid already saved up for college, that's normal, right? That's how everybody does it. And I'm not saying it's the right way to do it, but it is normal. So that's what we specialize in, is helping those families almost last minute. It's we talk about kids and their homework, right? It's the night before the papers due, right? That's when people get stuff done. And I don't have a psychology degree or anything like that, but I study that kind of stuff as much as I can. And there's laws of human nature that just always, if you have to leave at 3 o'clock to go to grandma's house, whatever you're doing is going to expand until 3 o'clock, and you're going to be rushing at the last minute to get everything together to go to grandma's house, right? It's just how we operate as humans. So, want to let everybody know that if you feel behind, that's normal. Doesn't mean you shouldn't do anything about it, but that's how everybody is.
oh yeah, I think that's right. Every dad I've ever talked to about finding out they're a dad, right? There's like a 3-phase reaction. There's the oh my god, I'm going to be a dad, right? The first stunning reaction followed almost immediately by like, oh my god, my house is not safe. Everything in my house is dangerous, and I've got to fix everything in my house tonight.
Right.
And then the third thing that hits them is, oh my God, how am I going to pay for all this? I can't afford to have a kid. Right. And
Right.
it, like, I mean, just like magic. Those are the three phases of finding out you're going to be a father for the first time. And I'm not sure we ever get past that. Oh my God, how am I going to pay for this? Of being a dad,
Yeah.
because everything's more expensive. Everything, you're like, oh, I got to buy this. And there are things you can't even think of that you're going to have to buy in the future. Right. I think that starts a tailspin for a lot of fathers of just scrambling. I got to work more hours. I got to get a better job. I got to up my game. I got to do something because, oh my God, I got to pay for all these things now. And we're not even to that college part yet. That's just like, right. So,
Well, and there's so many things that and I don't have an actual statistic on this, but so this is just my personal opinion. But it seems like every decade we go further and further into time, there's like twice as many things that parents have to worry about, right? So you think back to watching videos from the 60s and 70s and stuff like that, and it's like they just threw the kid in the car and gave him a cup to drink their stuff out of, and it didn't matter. Like, they didn't have bottle sanitizers, they didn't have car seats, they didn't have all this other stuff that we get to worry about. I see my kids obviously are a little older, but I see new parents today, and it's like, oh, all the different gadgets they need, all the different things that they're not bad things, they're good things, but it's like we didn't have to worry about any of that stuff, and I felt like we had to worry a lot more than my sister who had kids 15 years before me. So yeah, it's absolutely crazy.
I've done an episode on, I think, both my podcasts talking about the truth about what you really need as a new dad, because so many dads are afraid of this. Like, it is my most popular show on a podcast, has almost 400 episodes. It is still my number one downloaded show, and I did it 3 years ago.
Wow.
Because every new dad has this panic moment. And guys, here's the great secret: you don't need a whole lot. But
Right.
the one thing I absolutely advocate for that was not available earlier on for earlier parents is a wipe warmer.
Okay.
Because having not cold wet wipes on your changing table, especially if you live in a cold climate, is magical. There's a whole lot less screaming when it comes to changing diapers. You don't
Okay.
need it, but it's like the luxury item. I'm like, yeah, this is worth the splurge just to cut down the crying. Like, a
Yeah.
warm wipe cuts down so much crying changing time. Other than that, it's like, we got all the new stuff, right? Like everybody else, we got bombarded with stuff. It's like, yeah, that's nice. Yeah, that's nice. We had a lot of
Yep.
nice stuff to give to other people when they
Yeah,
had
we
it.
had the same thing. We're still cleaning out some of that stuff out of the basement and the garage. It's like, why do we still have the old car seats or the old whatever else we have? And yeah, passing on the bassinets and the cribs and everything else to whoever just had their kids.
The diaper genie, interesting invention. We loved giving that to somebody else. Oh,
Right.
love this. Oh yeah, no, the joys of fatherhood. It just comes with an automatic bill. Let me ask you, Paul, what was the best piece of advice you were given when you found out you're going to be a father?
Best piece of advice I was given. I'll switch your question just a little if you don't mind. I'll say the most unique advice I got, because I got a lot of really good advice, luckily. But I always sought out my grandfather. He's passed away now, but very wise and always had some good insights and had a lot of life experiences, and loved going to him anytime we were making a big life decision or had a big life change. We would always go talk to grandpa. And when I went to him and I said, "Hey, we're having our first kid. What advice would you have for parenting?" He thought about it for a minute. And he said, "Protect your wife from your kids." And I'm like, it just seemed like such an out of the blue, like didn't expect that as what he would give me as parenting advice. And now that I have a little bit of experience here as a father, I completely get it, because it's not just the usually the female mentality is they're going to give and they're going to give and they're going to give and they're going to sacrifice themselves, and they're not going to get their rest, they're not going to get their mental health and all the other things for the benefit of that kid. And that's where the kid is, not even purposely, the kid's a baby still. They're already taking advantage of that, right? And then they go on and they go on to be, a school-aged kid, and they're doing the same thing, right? But now they're actively doing it, right? So mom is, taking care of the packing the lunch for school and the snack and making sure the backpack's organized, making sure they're doing their homework after. And mom's doing all of this stuff for them, doing their, whatever the chore split up is at the house. It's usually the mom providing everything in most cases. And that's where those kids are going to keep taking advantage of that, keep pushing for more and more. And you have to protect your wife. You have to make sure she's getting her free time, making sure she's getting her mental health, and make sure that kid isn't taking advantage of her. So I just thought that was such a unique thing to think about in that fatherhood process.
Oh my goodness, that is a phenomenal piece of advice. You said that was your grandfather that gave you
Yeah.
that? Your grandfather was so on point. That is some of the best early fatherhood advice. That is something I actually put on the new dads. Here's what you need to know. That is one of the things, like, you need to protect your wife, because this is going to take a whole lot out of her really quick. So, wow, I didn't get any great advice to that level. I got to admit, I had some good advice, but that one is so valuable, especially in hindsight. They're 11 and 13 now, and in hindsight, it's like that was one of the best things I ever managed to do. I didn't do it perfectly, but trying to protect her and give her a little space, a little chance to breathe, make sure that she is not totally drained by this whole situation. That's stellar advice. Dads, write that down. Like, unless you're driving, then just come back, write that down later. Okay. Really, really stellar advice. What is the best thing about being a dad?
Best thing about being a dad. Once again, there's so much. I think it's kind of like the story we talked about, is just seeing the work that you put in pay off, right? Is seeing that you get to help be the co-author to that life story as a kid, right? That you get to create the experiences, you get to create the memories, you get to spend the time, you get to develop them into some great people. And they get to choose their own path, but they choose their own path based on what they've learned, right? And that's an amazing co-author kind of story of you're working together to help them understand different things, to help enlighten them, to help them get onto a path and try it out and walk a ways down a path and realize, maybe that is a great path, but maybe that wasn't the path, right? And having them help them make those mistakes and having them fail over and over and over again is just such an amazing thing, that how resilient they are, how amazing they can do that, just fills me up with joy, right?
Paul, what do you want to dive into today? Where we want to go with being dads today?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I work in college planning. I love talking about college planning. I think it's such an amazing thing to put kids on the right path. And that's where a lot of kids, they struggle with that, especially in those middle school and high school years, when the counselors at school, they don't have a ton of time to work with them, but they told them to do a career assessment kind of thing to start exploring those kind of ideas. And but they don't really have somebody to talk to about that. So the parents fill in as best they can, but they don't know all the different careers that are out there, especially a lot of the new ones that are coming out. So the kids are usually exposed to their teacher at school, their doctor, and what their parents do as a living. And those are the only careers they kind of know. And being able to open up those different paths and help the student to pick that path to walk down and see how it goes and see if they're interested in it and how to explore that is such a cool thing. So when we do that college planning with the kids, we don't start with what college do you want to go to. We start, 8th, 9th grade with what career path is best for you. And I have the luxury of, I have amazing counselors on my team. I'm not qualified to tell a 17-year-old what to do with their life. So we have the amazing counselors on our team that are working with those students who have the correct assessments, who have the relationship with the student, who have the ability to work with them on a one-on-one basis to develop what that right career path might be. And we are working with teenagers, so we do a second and a third backup. But when we start with that, the first part of college planning is college the right path, right, for that career? So if we don't have the solid career path, we don't know yet, right? So then we develop, okay, is college a great way to advance in that career path? And a lot of times it is. And that's where, when we look at the career path, it's not just the education you get at college, it's the relationships you build, it's the atmosphere, it's becoming an adult, all those different things. Um, and this is something I didn't do great when I was in college, is developing those relationships with my peers there, that for years on end, I can call back on those relationships. And for a lot of people, you hear about them becoming business partners. You hear about them connecting later in life to work on a project together, or hiring someone, or whatever else it might be, that those opportunities exist, or just calling them when you're both having kids and you're like, this is crazy, right? And need to bounce something off of them, having those friendships. A lot of times college is a great place to develop those friendships. And that's why, in my mind, a lot of the more elite universities are what they are, is the people that you're meeting there are all on that same level, right? They're all people who push themselves. They're all people who want to be leaders. They're all people who want that greatness in their life. And that's why a lot of them end up being a lot more expensive. It's not because the classes are that different. It's because the relationships and the things that you can springboard from there are much different. So that's why we love talking about financial aid so much, is they're also $90,000 or $100,000 per year per student, to go to a lot of those universities. And that's why we end up talking with a lot of our families, once we get the student to be selecting the right school and helping them with their essays and applications and all the process of going to college. We're working with the parents on how do we pay less and how do we make sure we have that bill paid as well.
Paul, let me walk this back just a little bit, and let's start with grounding parents a little bit who see this future and go, hey, I haven't thought about it. I haven't done anything with it yet. Or, my kid's a third grader. Why is this? Where should we start looking for? Now, obviously, the best answer for any kind of planning is I should have started yesterday or a year ago. Second best is now. And generally for any goal you're shooting for. But most of us don't think about that at all when our kids are younger.
Sure.
When is the time to start exploring? Like, how do we start even setting our kids up for success with that? You said a lot of kids don't know what other career paths are out there, what jobs are out there.
Yeah.
How do we as parents start to help expose our kids to more ideas, more career paths and stuff like that?
Yeah, great question. And it does start when they're young, right? So I have two things that I've done, and that's all I can share with you on that. Two great things that I think are very repeatable, very easy. They both go to being having the availability to spend time with the kids. So I'm blessed. My kid's school is right on the way to my office, so 7 o'clock till 7:30 every single morning, I have that time in the car with my kids that we get to talk about stuff, and I get to set my own schedule. So I pick them up from school a couple days a week, and I just get blessed with that time with our kids, and that can't be replaced. So one of the things we do when we're talking about career exploration with elementary age students is to think about earning money as what problem do you want to solve for somebody. So it's not what job do you want, it's what problem do you want to solve for somebody else, right? And that opens up not just what job you want, what entrepreneurship opportunity do you want? What's a problem in the world that you might be able to solve, right? And looking for that and thinking about that is just such a different way of thinking about career opportunities. And then we do talk about, the bigger problems you solve, the more money you might make, right? Because if somebody has a big problem, they're willing to spend more money to fix it, right? If they have a little problem, you might have to fix 1,000 problems a year in order to make enough money, right? Or if it's an easy problem to fix, then you might have to help a lot more people in order to do that, right? So those are the kind of things that I'm talking about with my kids. Is what kind of problem do you want to solve instead of what job do you want to have? So the other part is not giving them handouts. So the other thing that I've done is if they want to buy something for themselves, they have to go and work for somebody else outside of my house. I don't, and it's not wrong. Any way you do it isn't wrong, but I don't give my kids an allowance. We do provide them everything they need, and anything else they want, they can go out, they can work for it, and they can find a problem to solve. So they're doing odd jobs for their grandparents, for their aunts and uncles. They're 8 and 11 years old. They've been doing it for years. They spend their own money on Christmas presents, right? So it started, we would just go to the dollar store. So it's easier for them to understand, however much it is. It was so funny because they're like 3 or 4 years old. I'm like, you need $1 for every person you're buying a gift for, plus $1 extra for the tax, right? So just simplifying it, helping them understand a little bit about that. But yeah, my son saved up enough money, bought a Nintendo Switch when he was 9 years old, bought all the games for it, all the controllers, like everything he wanted to get. He did enough work. He saved half of the money off to the side, and then from his spending money, had enough money to do that. So those are the kind of things. Okay, it's the same thought process though of what career do you want? What problem are you capable of solving right now for somebody, right? So they went and they raked leaves for neighbors, and I mean, we know the neighbors are really just doing charity work to throw them $20 in. They're like they still can't do a great job at some of that when they're younger, but it's teaching those lessons of providing a service, providing value for other people is how you generate income for yourself. So that's the focus at a younger age, is just thinking through other problems that are out there. We have the kids or myself take the garbage cans out. Well, what problem does a garbage man solve, right? What problem does this person solve? So, you're at a sports game. What problem does that usher solve, right? Now, why do they make money? All the different things that you see around you, you can just throw that out there. And because you're spending that time with them, you're there with them, you're doing those things, you can have those conversations.
I'm so having that conversation with my kids. I thought I was pretty forward thinking. Like I started working with finances with my kids several years ago,
Yeah.
because I learned one of my big life epiphanies when I turned 40. I realized how much I didn't know about finances. My dad was not good with money. We never had a lot of money. He didn't know anything about finances, and subsequently, he couldn't teach me what he didn't know, what he didn't even know he didn't know. And when I was 40, I had this like wake up moment with my 401k. And so for the next year, I just pursued my own education in financial IQ, learning the different ways to make money and stuff like that. I didn't know there was
Yeah.
a way to make money other than trading time for money and investing, right? But that became a very big passion for me. So like my kids have investment accounts, and I sit down and we
Mhm.
talk dividends, and we talk capital gains versus dividend investments versus long-term investments and short-term investments, and uh, savings. Right? We really got into this with
Yeah.
the kids. I started paying my kids to do book reports for me. I would buy them age-appropriate books on investing, marketing, anything would teach them something, and I would pay them, not only buy the book, but pay them to read these books and do a book report for me, uh, to teach them things I knew school wasn't going to up front,
Yeah.
right? But the perspective of what problem do you want to solve as a solution for how do you want to make a living, that is a great idea as far as coming at it from the direction, because that's
Yeah.
what we all do, right? We all solve some problem for somebody, or we're probably not doing much if we're not. I just never framed it that way. Man, that's big takeaway. There's a big takeaway from the show, guys, right there. Write that down. This is a conversation you need to have with your kids right there. Don't make it about money. Make it about solving problems in the world, because
Yeah.
that will tell you a lot about your child's personality anyway. Who do they want? I have really, my youngest child is super empathetic, so it'll be really interesting to see which problems she wants to solve. I'm gonna have to have that conversation later today when we finish recording.
Yeah.
I love that. So
Well, and the other cool part is the teenagers dream big, right? So maybe not at my kids' age quite yet. They don't know all the big problems that are in the world. And that's a little bit on purpose, right? It's our part of our job is to shelter them from some of the stuff that's going on, but still be honest about things and everything.
mhm,
It's a fine balance we get to do as fathers. But as they move forward, my nephew, he's a senior in high school right now, an absolutely brilliant mind. Um, I asked him that question just at a birthday party for one of the cousins or something like that. And he says he wants to solve perpetual energy, where you can just make more energy without having to take energy,
mhm.
more energy to do it. That's like, that's amazing. Go and do it, right? So, and that's the kind of things that they'll come up with. And it's like, okay, what education do you need to do that 15 or 20 years from now, right? Because you're not going to do that tomorrow. You don't know enough to do that, right? But what do you need to learn about? What do you need to, where do you need to work to develop those skills? Who else would you need to help you to do those kind of things? And it's just amazing. And then they pick that path, and I don't know if that'll end up being his full path, but you take that path and then you find out it was or it wasn't the right path, right? And that's okay too. So I go back to it was um, sorry, Teddy Roosevelt, the Man in the Arena speech,
Mhm.
where he talks about the full speech is a citizen in a republic. It's amazing. It's an hour longer. So great listen. If you
It
love
is.
freedom and love being in America, like the whole speech is really good. But the big thing, and I share this with every team that I ever coach of my kids and all the different stuff, their soccer and baseball and everybody, is doers are going to make mistakes. The expectation is when you're in the arena, you're going to be dirty, you're going to be bloody, you're going to be sweaty. Like it's not going to be pretty. You're going they have a, I don't know if it's direct, but a paraphrase from it is to do is to err. And that's the expectation is if you're doing enough important things, the expectation is you're not going to get it right. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to do it. But it's the person who's in the arena that's actually trying, that's actually doing it, that gets all the credit. And if my nephew succeeds at perpetual engineering, he's going to know some amazing victories because of that, right? That if he can make energy without having to use energy to make it, right? That's going to be phenomenal. He's going to know some great victory, or he's going to know defeat. He's not going to make it, right? But that's the person who gets all the credit, is the person who's doing those things, who's trying. Um, and it's not the person on the outside saying, "Hey, you should have done this better," right?
He better be careful. They got rid of Tesla for that one. He succeeded. He absolutely succeeded in perpetual energy. Disappeared shortly after. Uh, I've seen a video of the actual experiment he did, and it's absolutely possible. Just doing it on a bigger scale is, would take more than someone did
Sure.
TikTok to show you how it worked. But yeah, sorry, the conspiracy hat come in. Um, so we're starting with the conversation of what problem do you want to solve? As parents, as our kids move to this next stages, how do we support them with moving towards that? Okay, I have this thing that I think I really want to solve, and I'm passionate about. How do we start guiding them in a way that helps them instead of overshadows them?
Yeah, so you're wanting to empower them to explore that as much as possible, as early as possible, right?
Mhm.
So it's hard, not in elementary school, but probably not in middle school. But by the time they get to high school, they can do job shadows. You can call a friend that's in that industry and have them talk over a lunch with them, right? You can get them exposed to what that actually means, what that actually looks like. And everything like that. So that's a lot of what we're encouraging students in those beginning years of high school. By ninth, 10th grade, we want to have a solid path of which direction we're heading. It doesn't mean that's the only path. It doesn't mean they're not going to change, but we want to have that path out in front of them. And then based on that path, one of the things we're focused on with those students is how do we develop that resume for that next step? So for us, a lot of times that is college. They need further education after high school. If that's the case, we want to make sure that the activities they're doing support that application we're going to be writing. We want to make sure that the classes they're taking are going to support the application that they're going to be writing. all those different things add up to, do we get into the perfect universities for them, or do we get declined, right? So how much can they handle, right? And I'm a father that is always pushing my kids to the next level. My kids, their school still teaches at grade level, so I'm doing daddy homework at home so that they can practice and get further ahead and things like that. But when we're looking at the student, it is what's the hardest class schedule that they can handle, right? That they can still get all A's. Those are the kind of things that we're working with the students on to develop that path of how is that going to look on a resume. So we're not creating anything that the student isn't already just to create a college resume. We're encouraging them to pursue the things they are passionate about, right? So if a student, they're in their sophomore year and they did 4 clubs their sophomore year, and they're thinking for their junior year, we don't want to do that much, right? Because we're taking a heavier course load. We need to drop 2 of those clubs. Well, if they're going to be an engineering major, maybe don't drop the robotics club, right? Those are the kind of decisions we're helping them make, because that's something they're interested in. Which one's going to work better on an engineering resume, the robotics club or the Spanish club, right? It's the robotics club. But those are the kind of things that we want to encourage them to develop the leadership in, and all the other things that go on that college resume. Helping build that ahead of time allows them to think through, what is that going to look like from a college admission standpoint, which gets them into universities that might get better financial aid for the parents and might be a better fit for the student. So that's ultimately the goal when we're doing a college list, is to find the right fit college. So when we're looking for a right fit college, it's not just the curriculum, right? We need the right major there. We need the right level of academics for that student. But we need the right culture fit on campus. So if we don't pick the right campus, if it's in the middle of nowhere and they're a city kind of kid, might not be a good fit, right? And vice versa. If it's a huge campus, if it's a small campus, if it's a very liberal campus or a very conservative campus, right? There's different fields and different groups of students that they're going to be surrounded by. And we want them not to be like everybody else, but we want them to fit in and have friends and have like-minded people that they can connect with, right? So that's a lot of what we're looking at. But the third one is where most even college counselors don't really look, is the right cost. So if it's not a cost fit for that family, it's not going to work, and they're not going to be able to finish the 4-year bachelor's degree, right? And that's when most families find out that it isn't a cost fit, unfortunately, is at the end of sophomore year, when they already paid too much for the first 2 years. And all of a sudden, not only can they not, and we're talking middle-class families, the first 2 years, somebody takes out parent loans is the most common thing that we see. You talk about the student loan crisis. It's absolutely crazy out there. But it's usually the parents that are taking on those student loans, because the students, nobody wants to loan the kid money. So there's nobody in the world that wants to loan an 18-year-old a whole bunch of money without a full-time job, right? So the only ones that do is the federal government. It's only $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 each year. That doesn't come close to covering the 30, 40, 50, 90,000 that college might cost. So the parents usually, they pay what they can from their college savings. They pay what they can out of pocket, but that usually doesn't cover it either. So they end up taking out those parent loans. And because it wasn't a cost fit for all 4 years, and we're just talking about the first student, we really need to talk about the second and third students also. But it's the second year usually that they're paying, $1,000 or $1,200 a month on those parent loans, on top of their car loans, on top of their mortgage, on top of all the household bills, on top of all the stuff you want to do for your family. And at that point, they say, well, we can't do another year. We can't add another $600 on top of that $1,200 they're already paying. So it's not that they don't have the money. They already didn't have the money to pay for college. They can't even borrow more money for those students to go back. And that's where we need to make sure from the get-go that we're mapping out that college plan. So that's another thing that even in elementary school, a parent could do. The first step of figuring that out, most people, and I'm not expecting your families to figure out the whole problem, but they can at least do the first step, is lay out year by year, semester by semester, how much money you're going to need. And that's something that most people haven't done because they didn't think about it. It's not a pressing issue quite yet. But even with kids your age, map it out for at least 4 years for each of your students, and how much money are you going to actually need to pay for the type of university they might be coming out at.
Hey guys, sorry to interrupt the podcast. This is Brent with my editing hat on, and guys, something I noticed was for the rest of the interview, if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, the video gets fuzzy. The audio is perfect. Nothing is wrong with it. You can hear Paul, and you've already probably taken away some great insights from Paul so far. I know I learned so much talking to him about preparing for my children's education, and I hope you guys are getting a lot out of this. If you're watching the video, Paul's face, he was using an AI camera and it started getting a little glitzy, and we talked about it afterwards, and he didn't have time to re-record the last 15 minutes of the show. So the audio is great. Just laugh at the fact that his face got a little fuzzy, and please continue to enjoy the show. Paul has so much great stuff to share with you guys. You said something very interesting to me. You said they're not teaching that in my school, so I've got daddy homework for my kids. I think that's something that not all parents realize is not every school. I'd love to say that schools across the board were great, but they're not. Not
Right.
every school is teaching at the same level. What they're teaching in your kid's school may not really be at a level that you think it should be at. So be active in understanding what.
I'm going to sound hard ass and maybe a little elitist, but my kids are at one of the best private schools there that are around, and they're still not pushing the kid as much as they should, in my opinion, right? And that's one of the things that I heard a little while back, and it just hit me like right square between the eyes, is your kids are homeschooled whether you know it or not. It's your responsibility to take care of your kids' education and all the different areas. So, yeah, that's kind of the take I have on it.
Yeah, it's. I think that's something I learned during the dreaded 2020 to 22 mess.
Yeah.
Was I got a close look at what was being taught in my kids' schools, and it was like, yeah, we've got to remap this. So we started homeschooling our kids actually.
Yeah.
We buy our curriculum, but then homeschool our kids. And so my 8th grader this year is doing, in our town, it's sophomore and junior level work.
Oh yeah.
Comparatively to what the public school is doing. So be
and there's no reason that they can't if they're bright and they're doing it on their own and they're just spending a few hours a day doing it. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely, and I value. I've had the thought back and forth of should we just go full homeschool or not, just because the schedule would be so much nicer to be able to travel a little more during the school year and stuff like that. But I found just for me and my kids, we put a little more emphasis on the value of those social issues, especially in elementary school. Of they have to deal with pain in the ass kids. They have to deal with other kids who don't think the same way that they do, that don't behave the same way they do, and learn how to not let that be an influence on them, but have them be an influence on the other kids and all the other things that I just find so much value in that. So yeah, I'm sending them to school. Not just for this, but a big part of it is so that they can be at recess and they can be at lunch and they can deal with those kind of struggles and negotiate how they're playing and what the rules are with the other kids without an adult interfering. That's some amazing lessons that are good skills that you can get elsewhere, but I like that they get it every day at the school.
Paul, as we start moving towards landing this plane, what's the best piece of advice you would give dads?
Best piece of advice I'd give dads. Actually, it's the same advice I give people when they start at my company, young especially. Somebody comes in their 20s and they're here. Same thing for us as dads is put in the hard work early. So a lot of what we do as parents is in the first 3 or 4 years. If you can put in as much work as you can in those first 3 or 4 years to create a student, create a kid who's an amazing kid that you love to be around, that other adults love to be around. They're going to be annoying sometimes, but not to the point where nobody wants to be around them, right? They're going to be a smart ass sometimes, but not to a point where other people don't want to be around them, right? They're going to make some mistakes and they're going to be who they are. but we want them to be the great person that other adults want to be around, other kids want to be around. And from a social standpoint, from an education standpoint, we want the kid who other parents want to have over, right? Or that other teachers want to spend a little extra effort because they know they're a good kid, right? All those different things add up to, and we want the other kids to have fun with them, right? Make your kids fun. But a lot of that is done in those first 3, 4, 5 years. And if you put in the work then, that's going to pay off for a very long time. And if you put in that work, you can do that work later. It's a lot harder. And not only is it a lot harder, it doesn't have as big as effect for as many years, right? So when I'm coaching, some of the younger team members that we have here, it's like the work you put in your 20s, if you're going to work till you're 60, that's going to pay off for 30 or 40 years, right? If you put that same amount of effort into learning and education and development, if you do that in your 50s, it's only 10 years left, right? So if you put that work in early, put in the extra hours with your kids, put in the extra time with them, whatever it takes, and not saying to ignore the financials because we all have to pay the bills and everything else, but as much as you can spend that extra time, that quality time, and helping them do the right thing. And for me, I take the approach of being strict and having high expectations and always raising those expectations of what they're capable of and how they should be acting and everything like that. Putting the time in is what allows that to happen. So, yeah, it's tough. You don't get enough sleep. You're already have other stresses from everywhere else. But the more time you can just spend with your kids and keep teaching them, putting in that effort to show them the right way.
Paul, if our conversation has flipped some switches in dad's minds right now, and they're like, oh my God, I don't know the first thing about college planning, and is it too early? Where is the best place for people to follow up with you?
Yeah, so if they want to follow up with me, help their student find the right college path, you can go to bridgewisecp.com. You can type into Google Bridgewise College Planning. That'll come up. I like going that way because then you see all our 5-star reviews. And there's an opportunity on there for a college readiness breakthrough session. That's where we can get to know your family, understand where your students are at. If they're in middle school or high school, we will be talking as well about the students' academics and what career paths and what help you have to develop in those areas. If they're younger, we're going to be focused on the financial side and how that college plan is going together, how your financial plan is going together. And that's where we are fiduciary financial advisors, but we're not just financial planners. We also have the team of college counselors that's helping the students to really do that. So I'd encourage them. T. Boone Pickett said, there's a fool with a plan is better than a genius with none, right? And I'm sure you've said similar things to your kids. So think before you do it, right? And it's the same thing with college planning. I've never seen somebody get better results by delaying and waiting till later and figuring it out, a few years later. The people who start early are the people who succeed in this process. So if they want that college readiness breakthrough session, we are a fee-based company. So if you don't mind, I'll disclose what that fee is. We charge between $3,000 and $8,000 per family that comes through our program. Don't let that scare anybody away from coming in and getting answers to their questions. The first session is complimentary. You're going to get some great advice. We're going to point you in the right direction. For a lot of people, we're not going to end up working with you. So only about 3 out of every 10 families who come in for a college readiness breakthrough session end up getting the opportunity to work with us. And that's why we have all 5-star reviews, is not just because we're awesome and we have an amazing team around me here. That's a big part of it. But the other part of it is we're so selective on who we sign on. We're looking for a huge return on that spend with our company, that if you're not going to get 8 times or 10 times that money back, we're probably not going to recommend you for services.
And you had a college workshop. What is that about?
Yeah. So if you go to bridgewisecp.com, you're not quite ready to have a full meeting one-on-one with us. We do have a workshop available as well. That's 1 hour. Usually we do those once or twice on a virtual basis every single week. We have some local in different areas of the country as well. But everybody can take advantage of that virtual workshop. And as you click on that, it's 1 hour and 15 minutes. We're going to cram that entire college planning, all of the expertise you need, down into just a couple minutes. So you'll have the ability to learn more on there.
And of course, we'll have all the links for Paul down in the show notes, YouTube description, whatever platform you're joining us on today. We'll make sure that you can follow up with Paul, because I know, like, for me, this is a lot of food for thought. Like, I really, my oldest is starting 8th grade. I'm not even thinking about college yet. And it's like, so, for all of us dads out there who are having a slight panic attack right now listening to this episode, it's not too late. There are people who can help you with this journey who actually know something about it. I watched my parents do this with my sister and figure it out on their own. And oh my goodness, what a mess it was. For like my family was lower income. My father was a domestic missionary. We didn't have a lot of money. And watching my parents and my sister try and navigate this whole college thing and how to pay for that and how to get loans and how to get grants. And guys,
Mm-hmm.
it's jungle out there. So I would absolutely recommend talking to Paul or somebody who knows something about this college thing, because it's a monster to tackle on your own. And if that is the path your kids are going on, you're going to want the help. Absolutely. Paul, we talked a little bit about a lot of it. If our audience heard nothing else today, what do you want to leave them with?
Nothing else. The one big thing is put in the time. Spend the time with your kids. Quality time. It doesn't mean you have to spend money and go spend a bunch of money at the arcade. I mean, just go to the local park and kick a ball around the field, or sit with them, or spend that time with them. I love car time because they can read a book, but there's not much else to do but talk to dad. So the more you can get somebody, I've heard with teenagers, just sit them in the passenger seat of the car and go for a long drive, and it's amazing the conversations that are going to happen. So mine are still in the back seat, but it's the same thing. Put in the time with them wherever you can, whenever you can, and be a good person. And if you're listening to a podcast like this, you're obviously will care about your kids and want to do better. And that's all that's we're going to make mistakes, and doers always mistakes, right? We're all doers. We're all going to make mistakes, but if you're putting in the time, the great lessons, the greatness you instill in your children is going to more than outweigh those mistakes.
Guys, for Paul and myself, thanks for hanging out with us today on the Dad Hat Shenanigans podcast, a community of dads just navigating life's challenges together. Until next time, laugh, learn, and live the dad life.